All right.
Okay.
Should we kick it, kids?
Yeah, let's do it.
Kick it.
This is the True North Collective podcast, a gathering of unsugar-coated conversations on authenticity, created by the real-life documentation of everyday humans fearlessly finding their true north.
Welcome to season 3 of the podcast.
Hi, I'm Rachel. The best sunglasses I ever owned have been my solar shields. We call my new hairstyle antennas. And my new favorite hobby is dumping the dump of my RV.
Hi, I'm Jenell. Big box stores overwhelm me. I put my clothes on inside out frequently, and I miss catching fireflies.
Hi, I'm Seth. I still keep a journal. My favorite color is red, and I love hazy IPAs.
And we are your host of the True North Collective podcast.
Okay, I found it. Grisette.
Okay.
You ever heard of that?
I have not now.
I hadn't either. It was decent. It was pretty light.
Is this too much light coming in from over here?
Nah. We've literally never videoed.
I don't know. We're easy. We don't make it hard.
Yeah.
Dumping the dump.
I love dumping the dump. There's something really systematic about it that, like, you got to put the gloves on, and then you do this part, and then this part, and this goes into here. And then when you're done, it goes into that tube, and then you take the gloves off and you clean your hands. It's like, I don't know. Dylan's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I like And we watched all the, like, worst case scenario videos when we were like gonna get the RV. It's because I was super nervous about it. So we just watched the most atrocious, terrible dumps of the dumps.
Oh God.
Ever.
Is that like just like shit going everywhere? Is that?
Yeah, it just doesn't bother me. I don't know why. At all. Like at all. It doesn't bother me.
That's good. I don't know. I clean up dog shit all the time, but I feel like human shit is like a whole
I mean, I'm not grabbing it. Like, I'm literally just like holding a tube down. As long as I get the like things in place, it's like this beautiful system. It just does exactly what it's supposed to. So
I'll eventually have to teach me your ways.
Yeah. I mean, give it 6 months, maybe I'll change my mind. But so far, most of the dump stations have been really clean. That's where I think I'd probably get a little squirrely, is if like I took the cap off and it was just like, I don't know, or like shits are just everywhere. And I was just like, oh, put my thing in, like, yeah, like, so we'll see.
When I was at Coachella last year and I went into a porta potty, have I ever told this story?
No, but I'm really excited.
God. I walked into a porta potty and there was fucking shit on the ceiling of the porta potty. How does that happen? Like everywhere. It was like someone dug in the porta potty and just like slung everywhere. I was like, no. It's just, and I almost walked in it. It was like partially dark, it's like so fucked up.
The thing that's crazy is when you walk into those porta potties that are that disgusting, but they don't smell. And then I'm like,
oh, it definitely smelled.
That
was like the only key, because it was very dark. Like it was getting very dark. And I was like, what's happening? You could just like smeared. Like, I don't.
Dude, when I was in advertising, this is so gross. When I was in advertising, I mean, there's people like, dude, they would do drugs and stuff. And we had, there's some like big office party. We had, God, this was going to be one of my random facts. I'm really bad at remembering like famous people's names and band names, but it's like a famous rapper. And so afterwards, some people like went back to the office, and when people went back to work the next morning or whenever it was, somebody had just taken a shit and just smeared their poop all over the office. Adults. Mm-hmm.
What the fuck? Like,
and I was like, okay, we work in advertising, so everybody's getting paid like a decent amount of money. Like, what's happening?
They must have been on drugs.
They were.
That's like
they
the
for
only,
sure. They for sure were on drugs.
That's the only answer.
Well, it's either that or they're 5150. They're crazy.
Well, that is also possible in advertising. It is a crazy industry. I can't believe I lasted as long as I did.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wild. This is good. Good start to the podcast.
Poop. We haven't talked about
Oh.
poop in a long time.
I was just editing Lauren's episode earlier. We hadn't talked about The Bachelor in a long time. We covered that in that episode. Haven't talked about poop in a long time.
Yeah.
We got some good stuff going on. Look at us.
Seth, you got any good poop stories?
No, just my dogs. That's the only poop I get to deal with.
Yeah. What's
What
the
about-
weirdest thing your dog ever pooped out?
Oh my God, a whole toy,
Oh! Ouch.
a whole like 3-4 inch toy. Just
Oh.
he just ate it. It said I have a pit bull, and it said that this toy is supposed to last as a durable chewer. It didn't even last 5 minutes, and he just ate the whole thing. This is gonna be fun. So it took half, and he just pooped it out on the middle of the street as I was walking across the crosswalk, and it was just a big yellow chicken toy.
Did it come out easily, or was it a struggle?
He stopped and had to do this squat and stop, then out. And I was like, do I clean this up in the middle of the street? Well, it's a green light. No, I don't know about that. I did, but I didn't want to.
Oh, the joys of being a dog owner.
Yeah, I guess another one now you got me going. I am fortunate to go visit county jail last year for a little bit, and as soon as I walked in, I got hit on by a guy that was smearing his shit all over the windows.
No.
Yeah.
How do you hit on somebody while you're smearing shit on a window?
I don't know. He was a Hispanic gentleman who was yelling at me through the vents, and then I was getting transferred from the holding cell over, and he smeared his shit and was showing his ass and balls to everybody that was in the holding cell.
Wow.
I was like, I'm
Yeah.
no.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, you don't want it.
Welcome.
Yeah. This is Monterey. Have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That is wild.
Are you open to talking about your journal?
Yeah, of course.
So what has kept you wanting to keep the journal for this long?
So I basically started when I was like 6th, 7th grade, and I just started off with a paragraph a day. And it's not an everyday thing, but it's definitely a weekly thing. And I just kind of talk about to myself. Mostly it's dreams. I like to keep track of my dreams because I now dream a lot. But I just kind of keep track of the journeys that I've had, the depression, the ex-girlfriends, and I'll go back to it every once in a while and be like, all right, so it's 2018 and I'm still thinking the same way I did in 2012. There's something wrong with that, wrong or right with that. So it's kind of, for me, it's, I'm not in a rush to die anymore, but if I ever die, this is kind of something that people can go back to. And if they didn't know me as well as my friends know me, this is an end to Seth's life. So I would hope at one point in time, I don't know if I want a book or what I want out of it, but I probably have 10 or 11 journals total. And if I ever had a fire, earthquake, or tsunami, they're all wrapped in double Ziploc bags, and it would be one thing that I would probably grab. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I love that.
I'm not I don't know what the proper word is, but I collect magazines and I cut words out and I put sayings or words into my journal as well.
That's what I do.
Oh yeah.
A collager.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's what I call it.
Interesting journals. And I showed one of my buddies the other day because he's going through hardcore depression, and I said, you should keep a journal, keep track of it. And he looked at mine and he was like, you're like one of those stalker people that send letters to people. And I was like, no.
Like ransom notes?
Yeah, exactly. Ransom letter. Yes. That's what my journal looks like. So, but
I feel
I like it. It's a story into Seth.
That's really cool. I love that comes up because that's not even a thing anymore because people can just type shit. Like, wasn't that people used to do ransom notes like that when they didn't want to like handwrite things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in the day.
I do a lot of talking to my text messages, but I don't get the same feeling out of it. I'd rather handwrite it and then put saying or clippings next to it, the feelings that I was feeling at that moment.
Totally. Someone asked me that the other day because I have a journal that I write in basically every day now. And I'm like trying to keep this door open because it's so hot in here. I'm like, the dogs are gonna love it. But they asked me, they're like, do you type it or do you write it? I was like, no, I totally write it. But they're like, don't you worry that someone's gonna like break into it? I'm like, no. It's not like I'm murdering people here writing about it. What, they gonna read about my feelings? Oh shoot. But yeah.
When I worked in advertising at another agency, it was like I was really struggling with it. It was kind of towards the tail end of like me. It was like I think I was just about to turn 30. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this doesn't feel like my heart and soul. But I hadn't really like been able to formulate anything beyond just like something feels wrong and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. So during the day, and I can't remember what I called it, but I had this folder that just had these like really dark, like during the day, I just like need to like get it out. So I would just like anything that I was just like, and some of it was pretty dark and they had a break-in and they stole my computer and I remember I was like, oh shit, they're gonna find this and be like, this bitch needs help, like needs some serious help. But I never got it back or anything. But then after that, that's when I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get an actual journal. And that's when I stopped typing anything up because I was just like, no, I do not really. I mean, if anyone got it, it's not like the end of the world or anything. But there is something to the somatic nature of actually, like, even my handwriting sometimes changes depending on what's going on, and it can be quite an indicator of kind of where I am. So
I go from cursive to print all the time.
Yeah.
Cursive? Yeah. What's that?
I was just gonna say, apparently they don't teach kids that anymore in school.
You never learned cursive?
No, I learned
cursive, but kids these days didn't learn cursive.
Oh my gosh, penmanship.
Yeah. My mom was an English teacher when I was young, so when we would get in trouble or whatever, she would literally hand us a book and we would have to write an essay or a synopsis of what we read.
Oh, damn.
You know what's funny? That would not be a punishment for me now. But,
not now?
Now I'd be like, oh, all right.
Let's write an essay.
Well, it's like critical thinking around a book, like reading a book. When do I ever, I have to like jam that kind of stuff into my life so much that it's like, that would be like, oh, sweet. I get to actually read some new information and critically think about it. That's amazing. That I choose.
That you choose. Yes, that you choose.
Yeah.
My middle name is Emerson, and so one of my mom's favorite people is Ralph Waldo Emerson. I had to read a lot of Aristotle and Socrates back in the day and Plato, and when you're 12 years old, it's like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. But now I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
It is.
Shall we?
Oh, yeah. Go. Introduce.
Yeah, I was going to introduce our extra voice on the podcast. So we are welcoming Seth Souza to the podcast. And Seth is my backpacking and adventure buddy and is into all things outdoor, from hiking, backpacking, trail running, snowboarding, mountain biking, obstacle course racing, skydiving, and is also building a business to support people that are struggling with their mental health, to encourage them to get outside, to go in nature, go on hikes. I feel like I was once again patient zero, like Rachel was one of your first life coaching people. I feel like Seth, I don't know, one of your first experiments on these backpacking trips, but super knowledgeable in nature, knows all the plants, knows how to keep you safe. And we've had some really great conversations on our backpacking trips and our hikes. So I am excited to welcome Seth to the podcast.
Hello, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna like start out with a heavy, well, maybe not a heavy hitter, but you sent me some information in your bio, and I'm curious. But you said that I never thought I would make it this long, and I'd been in a rush to die most of my life, but now I just want to live as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like kick it off there. I normally like, how'd you get here? But I feel like that is kind of, how did you get here, knowing that that is a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, so I've lived a long life already, I feel like, but when I was younger, when I was a teenager to about 20, I would drive 150 miles an hour, literally in a car, or 120 towards a semi truck, and to see in the wrong lane to see how long their skid marks were. I would stand on the edges of cliffs ready to go. I went skydiving the day before I turned 21 at 18,000 feet because I never thought I'd make it to 21. So I figured if I'm going to die, it better be before I'm 21. So I just kind of was always in a rush to go. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the music I listened to when I was younger. Tupac's one of my biggest people I've ever listened to for music. And, you know, he lived a lot in his 25 years. And I felt like I was never going to make 21, let alone 25. I'm 39 now. I'm like, how the hell did I make it this far? And just in this last 3 years has been a transformation for me of wanting to live and to enjoy every single minute that I have. And it's been awesome to, like, a lot of people think that I'm crazy because I don't sit. I really don't like to sit or stop. I'd rather be going. And it's like, Jenell kind of knows, we'll get done with one adventure. Well, what's next? Like, what's next? Let's do something else. We're not promised anything. And yesterday was actually a reawakening for myself. I got into a bad bicycle accident in the morning, and I was riding my bike to work, which I do every day. And I normally, it's bad to say, but I normally cross the road from one side to the other. I look for traffic, but I normally just cross over and don't wait for lights or any of that. I do not wear a helmet on the road because I hate helmets with a passion. And so I waited this time. I got into the left lane for turning, but I was in the wrong gear. And when I went to pedal next, I stepped too hard and my left foot went in between the bike frame and I ended up flipping over the bike. And it was on a highway where cars are going 55 miles an hour. And I just laid on the ground for a few seconds, which seemed like eternity. And I was fucked up. I screwed up my shoulder, my hip, my knee, both my ankles, my wrist. And I scared all the people around me in cars. And so I had an older lady in her late 70s stop, and she made me sit in her car. And I said, I'm fine. It's just going to take me a few minutes. And then a second lady showed up, and she took my bike from the side of the road and put it into her car. She said, I'm driving you wherever you need to go. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just a few miles away. She's like, just a few miles? I wouldn't even ride a mile if you paid me. Then a third lady stopped, and she ended up giving me a water bottle. And the second lady took me to work, and I got to work, and I'm bleeding everywhere. And I tore my shirt. Anyways, long story short, it sucked, and it was a realization of we're not promised the next minute. So when people ask, why do I do what I do when I do it, I don't know if I can make it home today. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just to live as much as I can while I have the time.
If you want to live as much as you can, how come you don't wear a helmet?
I don't wear, the only time I will ever wear a helmet is if I'm mountain biking downhill or if I'm on a motorcycle. I don't like helmets. I hate them. Even when I snowboard, I have two different groups of people I snowboard with, and I'm the only person that doesn't wear a helmet. And we go off big jumps. We snowboard in between trees. I have 8 concussions in my life, and I'm still not ready to wear a helmet. Is it just like
is there like a thrill element to it?
No.
You just don't like the containment?
Yeah. I don't like anything on my head or face.
Yeah.
Wearing sunglasses, I don't like it.
What happens to you, to your psyche when you have to be covered?
I feel kind of shut off.
Yeah. From
myself from the surroundings, from the air.
Yeah. Yeah, there something was coming up when you were talking around. I've talked to some people who also just like didn't think that they were going to make it very long and didn't want to be around, and they have an ability to be connected to a lot more than what is just in this 3D reality. And so I was curious if maybe the helmet makes you feel like disconnected from that or something. I don't know.
It kind of does. Yeah, I get asked all the time. My therapist the other day was kind of not making fun of me, but he's like, "You still not wearing a helmet?" And I said, "If they're gonna hit me on the road, they better kill me." Like, I'm not, because I get asked all the time, like, "Are you scared to ride on the road?" And I'm like, "Scared to ride on the road? Like, no, I'm not scared one bit of a car. If they, if they hit me, they better kill me." And then the next day, I get in an accident. I texted him yesterday, and he's like, "No, you didn't." I'm like, "Yeah, I sure did." And I sent him all the pictures of my cuts, and I was like, "Yep, sure did." But I was back at it this morning at 6:30 this morning. I was back out riding the bike. No helmet.
What was the shift from you not wanting to be alive to wanting to be alive? Can you like pinpoint it?
Yeah, I can actually. I just my whole I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger. So my parents broke up when I was 17. My dad turned gay and moved away with his partner in San Francisco, and my mom took my brother to Colorado. And so my junior and senior year of high school was me by myself, independent studies, had my own job, had my own car, lived life in the way that I thought it should be at the time. And I ended up fucking up a lot. I got in a lot of trouble. And so I spent until I was about 26 years old on felony probation. Couldn't do much. And so I don't think I really became an adult until I was 28. And I was good then, but I went through different relationships, and two of which made me get into really bad depression after we broke up. To the point where I didn't want to get off the couch. Getting a glass of water out of the fridge was too much work. I still functioned and went to work, but I was solemn and down and quiet and sad. I mean, every radio song I swear they made for me at the time. And it wasn't until Lauren was my main breakup, and she took the dog we had together. We had a little blue-nosed pitty named Rhino for 4 years, and when she broke up with me, that was the bottom. That was just in 2014, 15. I would stand at the edge of the cliff every day at work and just be like, would anybody care? Would anybody remember? What would they remember? I've been to a lot of funerals, unfortunately, in my life. So it's kind of like, what would the picture show look like? What does the after party look like? And then I got together with a new girl at the time, and I dubbed her Miss Awesome, is what her nickname was, because she was too good, and I knew it was too good. But I kind of pressured her a little bit because I already felt like I went from a long-term relationship to a short-term relationship and thought I was in a long-term relationship. So she quickly broke up with me after 7 months. And so I kind of got thrown back into depression again. And that lasted about a month or two. And after that, it's been up. It's been nothing but up. I'm not down. I'm not sad. I got into trouble in 2018 again, unfortunately. And so, the incident happened in 2018, but I didn't get in trouble until 2019. So 2018 was the best year of my life by far. 2019 was a year of humbleness, waiting, anxiety, waiting for the court's answers. This year, I'm back happy again. I mean, this whole coronavirus, I couldn't give two shits about it. I've been on 8 backpacking trips. I'm hiking every single day. I'm on the beach with the dogs. I got a phenomenal job now after 16 years of being at a crap job. So I'm happy, and I want to help other people, show them that you can be happy. And for me, nature is my happiness. When I'm hiking, backpacking, trail running, biking, snowboarding, skydiving, whatever, I don't think about what Trump's saying or whatever the hell is going on at that point in time. I just want to live. And I got thrown into therapy, not by choice, but my guy is really cool. And so I told him that I had started my own business on the side. and he offered me an awesome deal and said as soon as I'm done with therapy that he'll give me his clients list and start taking them on nature therapy walks. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what I want, because I know a lot of introverts, I know a lot of depressed people, a lot of sad people, and I kind of I don't know how the proper wording is, but I didn't choose to help them, but I help people just by talking is what I am being told. So if I can share my story, then that's all I really want to do and be remembered by, is to help one person. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Question for you.
What you got?
When you were in those states of depression, what pulled you through?
My mom was huge, and two of my good friends really helped. They kept telling me and acknowledging how my self-worth, to keep pulling through, that this wasn't the end. These were just a few bad days, dark days. And I didn't believe them at the time. I just kind of one word answered them. And over the time, I mean, because with the whole Lauren thing, that was probably almost a full year of depression. It was a lot. For me, I say wasted time. My therapist says it was a rebuilding time. I still consider it kind of wasted time. But my mom is huge. I mean, if a morning goes by that she doesn't text me, how are you doing? Good morning. There's something wrong. Even this last year, I had to do 15 days in jail. She knew that I was in jail, and she still texts me every day. So she was big. My buddy I live in a granny unit behind my best friend's house. He did everything for me. And so he was constantly helping me as well. And I didn't realize how big of a circle of friends I had that came out of the woodworks. I unfortunately was using social media at that time to, now I realize, didn't realize then, to reach out. I was posting a bunch of posts, and basically I was asking for help. And I look back and I'm like, whew, damn. Like when I read people that post the same thing I was posting at the time, I'm like, all right, so I got to help this guy. I need to say something, like tell him, if it's a girl, they're beautiful, or if it's a guy, like, you got so much more, you got kids, you're good at this, and just try to reassure people of their own self-worth. Because I've been there a couple times now, and I never want to go back.
Do you think it has helped to be able to acknowledge the reality versus the reality of, like, I was reaching out for help, I wasn't coming from a place of self-worth? Do you think it's helpful to, like, own that?
Yes, you have to. And this last year, like I said, it was a humbling year, but I was ready for it. I was ready for the change. And I think that's what a lot of people need to realize is, if you want to change, you have to be ready for it. You can't just talk about it and keep circling around and talking about it. You got to be ready to be humbled. You got to be ready to be told that you're wrong. You got to be ready to just acknowledge the fact that I'm not 100% right all the time. And I always had these stories in my head that it had to be that way. And it can't be that way. I wasn't ready. Like, if I said, all right, Jenell, we're going on this backpacking trip, we're going 10 miles, we're going to do this tonight, we're going to do this today. And if it didn't happen, I had those unreasonable expectations, and I was down. And I didn't realize that until I read a book from Dan Harris called 10% Happier. And so I read this. Have you read that one?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so the part that got me in that book was he was sitting there with a new newscaster, and she went off script, and his face just dropped. His wife and his brother called him on it and said, dude, we saw your face. You just went like that. And he didn't realize it at all. And that's kind of what prompted him to change. And when I read that, I was like, that's been me for so long. Like, I got told that I worked at a job for 16 years, and I was one of the bosses. And people that worked for me thought that I was amazing. The people that worked around me thought that I was unapproachable. And it's because my work ethic is, you come to work, I don't screw around. If you're going to screw around, go home, or I'm just not going to talk to you. And I did that for so long, and it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I've changed it a lot.
All very, very relatable. I know for me, a lot of times on social media too, if I'm posting a lot, it's typically because I'm lonely. So it's kind of our relationship with social media. Sometimes it's interesting how it's not always what it seems to be. I mean, I've been posting a bunch of pictures right now that I think are beautiful and I love them. I'm going to sharing them and people are like, oh, it looks like you've been having a great quarantine. I'm like, quarantine has not been great, but I mean, I've been doing these really beautiful things and there's a lot of other stuff going on. So it's definitely like relatable and feeling the lack of connection. And I have a strong group of friends now that I can also reach out to, but I've definitely been there too, where like even years prior where I would just use social media as an outlet because I was just like craving connection and didn't have anywhere to get it. That was very hit for me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I always find it so, like you hear the cliche or the quips and everything, but just like when you own where you're at, the messiest, the raw, the stuff that you're like, this is going to potentially scare people away. I have found when I actually own it, not the story that I'm trying to curate to make, everybody feel okay, but when I actually own where I am, there is like a surrender to it. I don't really know what, but I'm trying to figure out, because when I do actually drop into that place, people show up differently for me than when I'm trying to, like, I might be saying the story, but I'm trying to spin it in a way, or I'm trying to, like, I don't know, not own the fact that I just feel like I'm not worth salt. And when I can actually just own it, there's a simplicity to it. And I've found that the people in my life actually do show up, which I hadn't experienced for a very long time because I had not been able to actually just own it.
The people that matter, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
I was just say, Rachel and I have had this conversation. I'm sort of curious because it's something that I struggle with, of how to tell my story, not feeling strong enough sometimes to tell it. Probably a lot because I haven't fully accepted it yet. It's not something I'm sitting in right now. But we've talked about I think there's beauty in sharing your story. And then there's the other side of keeping it, maybe not for yourself, or maybe for yourself or just for the people close around you. And I think it's hard to know, or at least I'm trying to navigate, when does it benefit me to share it and when does it not? And I know that I can only answer that question and it's my own truth, but I'm curious for both of you if you have any thoughts on sharing your story versus keeping it to yourself.
I share too. I don't know if I share too much. I have a tattoo, heart on my sleeve. I talk to everybody about everything. If they're gonna judge me, they're gonna judge me. I don't care anymore. I mean, even the girl that picked me up on the ride the other day, she asked why I was riding, and I just flat out said, I got in trouble last year. I can't drive right now. And she just go, really? There's a lot more to talk about than we have time to talk about. And I said, yeah, if you ever want to meet up and go for a hike or do something. She's like, well, I just got married and I have a kid that's 3 months old. And I was like, I'll take you and your husband out for a hike. I don't care. Like, it's not about you. I talk a lot. I don't care. You could be the cashier at California Fresh. You could be the gas attendant at the gas place. Anywhere I go, I talk. And if I feel the vibe with that person, I'll open up at all. And I know it's the right thing to do, is to talk to people, because a lot of people, like you're saying, they're not ready. Some people aren't ready to talk about stuff or to acknowledge it. But if they hear it from someone else, it might be one of those oh shit moments where I'm not the only one. And so that's kind of that's why I talk about everything to everybody. Like, I've worked menial jobs at KFC. I've been a graveyard attendant. I've been a cashier. I've been customer service. Like, I've done everything. And that one person that might say hi to you that day or start a conversation, you might remember it for a few months. And it might be the startup of something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I agree. I tend to be an oversharer or I don't know. You didn't say you were an oversharer. I have tended to be an oversharer myself. And I have learned through the years, and that's probably where the question's coming from, Jenell, just as you, like, I would say I tend to be the one that's like, bleh, bleh, like, here's all of it. And then in hindsight, I might feel like, I don't know if I was ready for that person to own that part of my story, because I'm still learning to own that. And in my relationship, he definitely keeps things a lot more close. And so I've learned from him too, the value of being thoughtful and on the when and trusting yourself. And the more that I am comfortable with my story, the less it matters. So it's interesting. I am an oversharer, and that actually, I think at one point came from a place of like, accept me, accept me, accept me, accept me. If I put it all out there, I tell you up front, all of this about me, you're either going to reject me right away and it's going to get it over with right away, or you're going to accept that knowing it. And so I'll be safe. And so it was like a survival mechanism. And I didn't know it at the time, but I can see that now. And then as I started to realize like that I was just being really flagrant with my story, and the way that I was telling the story was not for me. I was sharing it in a way to get certain responses, to elicit validation. I was definitely curating things to curate my life, what I thought I wanted to hear, what I thought I wanted to experience. And it was all vapid, not all vapid, but it was all very surface level. It was deep stories, but it was coming from a surface level place. And so therefore I experienced surface level around it, and that sucked. And so I really pulled it in, and I had to relearn when I share and how much I share. But then as I'm kind of coming around this bend, because I'm in my late 30s too, as I'm coming around this bend, I'm learning how to own my story and share it in a way that it's mine. And from a place of, to be cliche, radical acceptance, or more radically accepting than ever before. And from that place, I actually am not paying attention to how much, if I'm sharing too much or too little, it kind of doesn't really matter. It's like, I'm sharing it from my heart, whatever comes out at that moment, I trust it, and I'm not attached. I don't really care what anyone thinks about it for the most part. I definitely do sometimes still care, but in the comparison of my life, like I care way less than ever before. And so therefore I'm not trying to pay attention to how much I'm sharing or not sharing. It's just, it is what it is, and I'm cool with it. And yeah, thanks for the question. I really haven't thought about it in a while.
Yeah, there was a quote from The Angry Therapist, and it hit hard for me too. He said, when we don't listen to our own truth, we don't know our own story. We don't own our own story. They do. So if you want to write your story, start listening to what's stirring within. I feel like that is where I'm at right now. I'm like, I haven't been listening fully to my truth. So there's a lot of parts of my story that, like, even when we think about it, like we use the Steve Jobs reference about the dots and looking back and seeing where you've come. And I'm like, what are my dots? I don't even know. Like, I haven't even fully owned that yet. So when I was preparing for this conversation, I mean, I still didn't put a ton of thought into what those dots would be. But the process of even just understanding that I'm not quite sure what those are, or I haven't owned them yet. And I think a lot of that is also just due to minimizing my own experiences too, of like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, that happened to you. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I mean, there's pros and cons to that, right? Of accepting it and moving on, and not constantly putting yourself back into past situations. But at the same time, it's not coming from a place of acceptance. I feel like it's coming from a place of shame and like not wanting to accept it. It's just like, we'll put that in the bedroom closet on the top shelf in the back, and we're not going to deal with it. And so that's like where I've been at with my story.
And that's okay too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. It's like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And there's so much that we don't know. And so, I don't know. I found really being able to like practice not judging myself and just like, yeah, so this is the cards I was dealt. And at that point in my life, that's how I handled it. And I don't know, like we can make a lot of meaning out of why I put that one thing in the closet until I decided today that it was going to come out. And now I'm not living because I'm so worried about why I put it in that corner versus this corner. And if I can just trust that it needed to be in that corner until it wasn't. And I don't know, for me, that has been really freeing, and just, or when I can remember that, it's very freeing to just be able to let it unfold almost for me as much as it is for the world. Cause yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the key word for that is just got to be ready for it.
Yeah. It's interesting as we're talking about this because so Seth, I don't know if you know this, but I had cancer when I was 14 and 15. And for some of the drugs that you get memory loss. And so it's interesting. I hadn't thought about this until just now, that I've been really, really critical of myself for curating a specific story around me having cancer that makes other people feel comfortable. But to be honest, I don't really even, there's so much of it that I don't remember, that I think there's been a disassociation to that time. And there's not a lot of photos from it because I wouldn't let my mom take photos. But the few that I do have, it does kind of feel like this made up time. And the more that I've started to like, I meditate a lot, and I have definitely realized that one of my values is spirituality, and being in nature connects me to that. So the more that I connect with that part of myself and I get curious about that time in my life, aspects are becoming more there. But I mean, to not really know, it makes sense that it would be easier to make something up. And if I was going to make something up, why wouldn't I make it up that I was this big hero? Like,
yeah,
so it actually does make a lot of sense. I never thought about that till just now either. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. The other thing that was coming up for me while you were talking earlier, actually, Seth, was I was trying to like scroll through my phone. Do you know Duncan Trussell?
The name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you anything about him.
He's like I'm obsessed with him. He's kind of crazy, but he has this podcast right now, and he has gotten, so historically he's been really into psychedelics and reaching altered states of consciousness through psychedelics. But recently he has been very much into the world of meditation as a way to reach those altered states. And so it's been really cool to hear him be on that journey. Anyways, the episode I was listening to today was with his meditation teacher, and they were talking about a conversation that his meditation teacher had with some like high up guy while he was learning. And in his student group, they'd asked the guy, what's the answer to enlightenment or whatever. And this is what I'm trying to remember the answer. So I can't remember. It starts with an I, but it's going to come to me while we're talking, but impermanence was his answer. And as they started talking, basically like the idea of impermanence and death is like so scary for everybody. But on the flip of that, there is actually life in impermanence, because when things die, new things that's where growth happens. And so as you were talking earlier, Seth, about that, lean towards whatever your relationship was with death, like that life is actually the other end of the coin, and like how interesting that actually is. So I don't know, that just came up and I'm throwing it out there. Impermanence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact quote, but it's something about, a lot of people live, but not a lot of people, or a lot of people die, but not a lot of people live, something like that. And I feel that's so true, because everybody's just kind of trying to fumble their way through the day sometimes, just trying to make it to Friday. I'm like, but it's Tuesday. Like, you got to live for today. And, it's like, so one of my grandmas, my dad's mom just died a year and a half ago at 79. And I hadn't talked with her for years because she had stopped talking to my dad because he was gay. And it had been like 19, 20 years. And so I stopped talking to her, my brother stopped talking to her. But then I had this like inclination. I was like, wait, I had a really good childhood with her. And so I started reaching out to her, but she had moved to North Dakota. And in April, it was still 17 degrees out there. She had a little small window to look out of. It was still cold. She couldn't walk outside, but she was just listening to the birds. So I started sharing pictures with her, and she said, all right, on my 80th birthday, you're going to take me skydiving. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be awesome. She died 17 days before I went out to visit her.
No.
Like, I keep telling everybody, you got to live for as much as you can. She gave up. Is ultimately what it came down to. She gave up. She didn't feel that she had self-worth anymore. She wasn't giving anybody, and she was just done. And like I said, I feel like I wasted almost all my 20s is kind of what I feel like. I didn't really start living until I was in my 30s. So when I'm preaching to whoever else that's younger than me, I'm like, you got to live every day. Live as much as you can to whatever extent that is for you. But I'm all about memories. Like, if you check out my Instagram or any of my pictures, like, it's all about living. It's all about getting out and adventuring, experiencing new things. I lead docent hikes for 3 different companies. I was in the Big Brothers program for 4 years. I've organized trash pickups for 6 years. Like, I'm about bringing different walks of life of people together, and that's been me my whole life, even in high school. Like, I lived in Portland, Oregon for 6 years, and then I moved to this little podunk town outside of Fresno, Yosemite area, and it was all hicks, all a bunch of country people. And here I come wearing Tommy Hilfiger and Ralph Lauren and polo, shaved head, piercing.
Your collars popped?
The collars were popped, backwards hat.
Yes.
I'm a size 30 waist. I was wearing size 36 and extra large shirts. I was totally emulating Pac and Naughty by Nature and Nas and all that back then. But I was able to bring the jocks, the skaters, the goth, the nerds, the prom girls, like everybody together was all my group. I never had, you couldn't call me the skater. You couldn't call me a jock I played basketball, ran track, and played football. Like, I wasn't a jock, but I also skateboarded. I also snowboarded. I rode mountain bikes. I listened to hip hop. I loved smoking weed and drinking at the time. So, I was like all over the place. And it's kind of what I like to do nowadays. Like, my 35th birthday, I had 9 friends come together that didn't know each other, and now 6 of them hang out with each other without me even being there. I'm like, what the hell? Where's my phone call? Yeah.
And people together. Yeah, it is really true. Actually, Joaquin, who's been on the podcast a few times this season, we just had that conversation and trying to find the balance of, I ask myself almost every single day, like, if I were to die tomorrow, would I be happy with the day I'm having today? And it's hard because a lot of times the answer is no. But if you just quit everything you do, fuck it all, then if you do have a future, I'm like, did I plan for my future? So I struggle with that balance of like, when is the risk worth it? And so that you allow yourself to live, but if you have a future, like, you're still planning for the future.
So that's a huge conversation I've been having with my dad for a while. Like, so I just left the job of 16 years. I had 401k money. And if I just was able to pull that 401k money out, I'd be debt free and I could go travel the United States for months and not have to worry about anything for months. I live for the day. I'm not planning whatsoever for the future. And this, so I mean, that's the big thing he doesn't like. So I ended up adhering to his instruction, and I ended up transferring the money over to a Charles Schwab account just in case I make it to 60. Because I don't know if I'm gonna, I don't know if I can make it to 40. You know, it's like I just don't know. And I would rather the quality of life today be better than the quality of life then. Like I figure I'll adapt at 60 or 55 or whatever age it's going to be that I make it to. You'll just adapt at that point in time. But I would rather today be the best day that I can. So if I die tomorrow, it's like, what'd you do? Took the dogs for a run, played in my garden, went to work, took the dogs for another run, and then went for a mountain bike ride. Sounds like a good day to me. But yeah, you got to figure out that balance.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time to be alive with that question because so much is changing so fast. And I mean, even just before 2020, it's like the things that my parents were recommending to me in order to set myself up aren't necessarily tried and true, you know. And even a few years ago, the things that my dad got himself from the projects of New York to living in Coto de Casa, like biomedical engineer, has like did it for himself. And yet even in the last 5 years, I've seen him really change the way he's talking about, like, I really pounded this idea into you guys that it needed to be this, and this in order, or it's going to be fucked up and you're not going to make it. And he's like, and I was wrong. And, you know, he still has some ideals that he's like, ooh, you know, like he wasn't super thrilled that I bought an RV. And that was me really, for the first time in my life, I was sitting there because I always make the responsible decision. I always have an out. I always have a backup plan. I always have the safety net. I always have something. And again, given the state of everything, I'm not making I'm making less money. I mean, I used to say this before, that I was making less money than I made right out of college when I was working, when Jenell hired me. But now I'm making even less than that, because I'm like in me figuring out what it means to be a life coach, whatever. I'm not going to defend it. But I'm sitting there like, this is an expense. I had a house. I sold the house. I made money on it. And you don't buy an RV to be able to resell it. I mean, it depreciates like 20% the second you drive it off the lot. And I said to myself, I am willing to buy the experiences that I'm going to have in this thing. And I will never, the longer I wait, again, same, like I'm by 45, long-term survivorship for childhood cancer is, 98% of survivors have pre-significant health-related issues, some fatal. And so it's like, I'm not going to live into that reality, but, it is possible. Like, I don't know. And either way, what am I waiting for? And I am willing to pay the chunk of money that I was able to put down and the money that I'm paying per month for the experience of it, to walk away from that money knowing that I paid for experiences of a lifetime. We've had it for 2 weeks. We've gone out both weekends, and like, it's like I always had it. It feels like a part of me that I was like waiting for some perfect time. And I'm like, it feels like it was already mine. And so to have lived 37 years without that and to now have it, it's like not even a question. Like, how was I even questioning whether this was the right call for me? So anyways, my point was, in the great changing of everything, and things changing so fast, it's even like, we gotta be more nimble. We gotta be flexible. We gotta be able to evolve quickly and adapt and like meet the moment where it is. There's, in the certification that I'm in right now, I can't remember if I told you this already, Jenell. If I did, I apologize. But well, I don't apologize. So when we butt up against challenge or stress or adversity, there's like two locus of controls that people tend towards. One is external, one is internal. And the external is like, you basically don't take responsibility. You blame everything outside of yourself. You are victim. The internal one, you kind of use productivity, decision-making, like you're very victorious as a way to like have a sense of control.
She's laughing because I'm raising my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
narrate
but
actions.
Mark Atkinson is the guy who was doing the lecture, and he said, but what if there's a third one? And he's like, trusted surrender. And in trusted surrender, you're finding that edge between taking control and totally letting go. And so, you know, even in your question earlier, Jenell, of like, where are you sharing too much versus when do you share? It's like finding that edge for yourself of like, it might, you know, the edge might be, you know, at the 75% mark today, and your edge in a week or in an hour might be at the 25% mark. But finding your edge of taking control and letting go, I think is really going to be a huge part of how we can continue to evolve as a society, as humanity, versus having these really rigid, this is the way that it works. And so we're all just going to try to adhere to it because we think we're supposed to. Like, that's just, it's not possible to sustain over the long term. So.
Yeah. And it takes the internal work. Because I honestly, one of the reasons why I don't think I share my story is because I haven't done the work, like I said before, to figure it out what it is. So if like people aren't even asked to be like, oh, I don't know, I haven't thought about it. So yeah. Seth, I have a question for you.
What you got?
How do you live for the day when you're in jail? Just gonna go heavy hitter.
No, my dog's just
You can decline to answer if you'd like.
No, I had to think about it for a second. I still talked a lot to everybody. So a lot of the time, when you first get in jail, it's a lot different. So I'll describe my first day in jail. So I go to court, and I was told I was not going to jail. So I parked in a 2-hour parking spot, and I got put into jail. And so I ended up going in there with a black guy and a Hispanic guy. And you walk into the jail cell, and there's a bunch of people from different races sitting on tables. And they ask you if you're white, if you're black, or you're other. Or if you're a paisa, but I was not a paisa. Paisas are straight from Mexico. And so I said, well, I'm a white guy. So they immediately pull me into the white group. And I'm like, I'm not white, you know, I'm an other. I relate to everybody. I've never been racist. I was never raised racist. And so I quickly learned after about a week of being in there that I needed to talk to everybody. And I have a lot of tattoos, and that kind of helps with breaking down people in jail have shit jail tattoos. And every tattoo I have is a meaning for me. I have a bunch of quotes. I got 6 different languages. So for me, I talked with people about my experience, what brought me there, even when I was there, because I had my mom, my ex-girlfriend was still talking to me at the time. John took care of my dogs, my garden, my finances. So I knew that I had an end. And I think that's what really kept me going was I was given 28 days. And so I said, I can do 28 days. That's nothing. The hard part was when I got threatened a couple times to either get beat up with a sock party or get stabbed because I wouldn't adhere to the KKK people, basically. But I worked through everything. You have to work in jail. So I worked harder than everybody else, and they didn't like it. And so the boss was like, you know, if you keep working this hard, you're going to piss people off. And I'm like, you want me to work less? He's like, no. I'm like, so you're basically putting me in a position where I'm going to get threatened now, which I did. But I talked to people. I journaled while I was in there. Luckily, we were able to have iPads, so I watched a lot of skateboarding, snowboarding videos. I had like 5 people over my shoulders the whole time. I had a few people draw me out some tattoo possibilities. I listened to music, and I just kind of reflected and read books. So I made the best of the time that I had. I didn't think it was a vacation by any means, but I wasn't used to stopping, and that was the first stopping standpoint I'd had in 10 years. You're forced to stop. I only got to go outside 2 times in 15 days, and that really hurt. I couldn't see sunlight the whole time. It's never dark in there. The food is fucking horrible. I lost 17 pounds. But I just maintain with, this isn't the end. Your mistakes do not define you. And that has been a big saying I say to myself a lot. Yeah, I screwed up. I screwed up a bunch. But my mistakes aren't me. Like, I'm a good person. I know I'm a good person. I'm finally good with saying that. I'm happy with who Seth is now. Seth at 19, I'm embarrassed to say a lot of the shit that I fucking did back then. I did a lot of stupid crap. So, and I still have a lot of friends that I talk to 20 years later that's how they remember me, as the Seth from 1989 and 2000. And they're like, you remember when you did this? You remember when you did? I'm like, yeah, it was, no, I remember, but we don't talk about that anymore. So, yeah. I talked with guards. I talked with people. I did everything I could to stay afloat and keep myself up.
Are you still connected with any of the people that are
from jail?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I had a few people follow me on Instagram and email me a few times, and they've all fallen off. And there was no one there that I was ready to start a friendship with, because for them, they weren't ready themselves. They're all still stuck in that jail life. I bet you 4 out of 5 people that I was in jail with have already reoffended. That's just their lifestyle. Like, one of the guys, he was 27. He'd only spent 16 days of his adult life outside of jail.
Wow.
But we had phenomenal conversations while we were in jail. But he's not someone that I would ever go, hey, let's go have a beer with. Let's go for a hike. You know, because he's not ready yet. And if he's ready, he knows where I'm at. So,
what kind of support exists in there for people?
Support?
Yeah, I mean,
in jail?
So the reason I ask is because my cousin is a I don't know what her actual title is. She has a PhD and she's not a therapist, but I just can't remember what her title is, but she's something in the therapy field at Folsom Prison. She's smaller than me. She will not talk about it. And yeah, it's just, and I mean, the power of a conversation, the power of being able to talk to people. That's why I asked, like, what is there for people?
There's nothing. They say it's for rehabilitation for people in jail. There's no rehabilitation at all. They have church on Sundays, which I don't believe in that stuff, but they have church in Salinas, where I was at, or Monterey, whatever you want to call it. There's 980 inmates in there, and there's only room for 25 people to go to church. And you're picked and chosen, and it's usually if you're one of the longtime offenders. Most of it's like, I'll put it this way, I will never go to a zoo again for the rest of my life, because in jail you are behind all these glass windows and there's people with clipboards that walk by you, and they're always constantly evaluating or judging or writing down things. I felt like I was in a zoo, and I don't feel there's rehab. I mean, the judges, or the correction officers look down on you. You're always the bad guy. You never did anything right, no matter what. Even if you're in there for a DUI that was 27 years old, like my bunkmate, you're still a bad person. I don't feel, in California, maybe it's different in other states, there is no rehabilitation. Even if you're allowed to go to school, you're still just a number. I don't really have any good experiences from jail at all. And I've been, unfortunately, 5 times in my life, and I've never learned anything good from there. You learn more bad. You learn how to get away with more things. from people.
Wow.
So, I mean, like, it was heartbreaking. My first time ever in jail, I was 19, it was 2000. And my mom lived in Colorado at the time. And she came to see me in jail, and I was behind the courtroom, shaved head, or unshaven face, shaved head, and in an orange jumpsuit. And at the time, I didn't care because I was like, if I'm 19, I'm Pac. I'm like, come on, I'm Pac. I'm DMX. Like, I'm living that life. And then I saw my mom cry. And it was like, shit. Like, this isn't just affecting me. This is affecting my family. And that was a major turning point for me. So I hadn't gotten in trouble for 19 years. And I did really, really good to keep that life up because I knew what the other side was of getting in trouble and affecting other people. And so when I got in trouble in 2018, I didn't have my dog yet. But when I finally got sentenced in 2019, I had my dog. And all I thought about almost 95% of the time, I just want to get back and cuddle my dog and play in my garden. And so that's those two things really kept me going as well. I just knew that there was more out there for me, and this wasn't the end. So I was able to make it out, and you know, every day has been the dog. Like, he gets a walk every morning and every night. I play in the garden for about 45 minutes to an hour a day, and I work. I'm working on growing my business, naming pictures, just staying focused is a big thing. Just knowing that I have more to offer other people.
Yeah, what you said about like remembering that you aren't the things that you've done is like, I mean, for anyone, I feel like that is such a, you're not the things that have happened to you. You're not the things like that you've done. You're not, that is, it seems simple, but it's not. And to not just have it as a concept, but to actually know it in your heart, is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I know it. I know it now. My therapist kind of helped push it into me, but I knew it beforehand. I made a comment to him last year, and I said, you know, I'm not really where I want to be in life. And he's like, wait. I work for 5 companies. I volunteer for 4 others. I'm really known in this community. And he looks at me and he's like, wait. You're not where you want to be at. You might not be where you want to be at, but you're where you are, where you're supposed to be at. And ever since he said that, I was like, oh shit. Like, do I want to start over and go to Colorado or Utah or Minnesota? Do I? Right now, no, not yet. I mean, I still have more to put together here, and then maybe I'll branch out because I kind of want to chase the seasons is what I'm looking to do. You know, I'd love to go to Minnesota, go to Duluth, Lutzen area for 4 months, and then go down to Page, Arizona for a few months, go up to Portland, Bend area, come back to Cali. I want to chase seasons and enjoy every day I have. So I'm trying to figure out how I can do that in the next 5 years is my goal.
So cool.
It's interesting because I feel like there's a balance if we tie it all together between you're not what you've done, you're not your experiences, you're not what's happened to you, and you're not your story, but yet you honor it. I always think that's so interesting because I think we can get really wrapped up in like we are our story, but at the same time we're not. I'm like question mark.
my past has always haunted me because like when I had to get a job for so many years, I had to click yes, I'm a convicted felon, and so that was a really, really hard thing to get over. But I'm not a convicted felon in my head. Like I've never been to prison. I was never sentenced to jail in my entire life until this last year. I just had to do probation my whole entire time. But my story is who I am today. Like I will not diminish that whatsoever. I've lived a good life. You know, I get asked all the time, like, you must have had a bad childhood. I'm like, nope, I had a great childhood. Like I have so many phenomenal memories. My parents never treated me bad. I mean, like, yeah, I got spanked, but back then everybody got spanked. Now it's like a child endangerment charge or some crap. But no, I mean, my story is who I am. but I'm not that person. I'm not a troublemaker. I'm a person that's willing to help anybody out there. I'll give you the shirt off the back. I pick up trash all the time. I help homeless people. Like, for me, it's just giving back. And maybe that has to do with the wrong that I've done in my life, that I just want to be that helpful person. I even feel like yesterday when I got in that crash, I'm not a person to ask for help at all. I refuse to ask for help because I feel that's kind of like not lowering my standards, but I don't like asking for help. And every day I ride my bike, I see another cyclist with a flat tire, or it's on the side of the road, or someone that's walking, and I say, "Are you good? Are you good? Is there anything I can help you out with?" And so I feel like yesterday was my karma payback of, all right, we know you're not good because I can see it in your face, but I knew I was good. It was going to take me some time. So getting that ride was like I kind of felt like a little bit low because I had to get a ride. But at the same time, I was like, this person's willing to go out of their way to help me. And that just kind of reassured me to help people just as much.
As I said, you would do that for anybody, so.
Well, yeah, and it does feel good to be able to help people, not because they are deficited, but because we're all in this together. And so that, you know, to give somebody that gift of being able to be there for you, again, not because you're like incapable, and maybe there's aspects that are, but it's like giving somebody that gift of being able to support. I had an interaction at work this morning that just took me down, and I'm usually the person at work that holds the space for everybody, and you know, you can pretty much tell me anything, and I know how to just listen and not take it on, and really love people, not in like an overly like toxic positivity way, but and because I've kind of fallen into that role, I sometimes forget that I can break down too. And this morning I just couldn't stop crying, and I was saying, I'm sorry. And then I was just like, stop it. Like, these people want to be here for you. Like, this is, you know what it feels like to be able to hold a space for somebody. Like, this is a mutually beneficial thing. They would not be here if they didn't want to be here with you. And they're not here because they think you can't handle it. Like, just allow. And then I just kind of like, it just like all came out. I let myself be energetically held and hugged because of COVID. But like, it was, they and then they said thank you, like, thank you for being that real, that you were able to, like, that's human.
It's good to do that.
It is.
I'll go for it.
I was gonna say, I had this thought of like, we are like the keepers of the situation, like of this slice of life in this vessel, and like honoring this story is like honoring that specific nuanced life that came to be, that you happen to be the keeper of. And so like recognizing that, you know, you aren't that, and you get to honor it and hold it, and that ability to almost like as its own novel, and like and allowing that honoring of that slice of life to exist is the makeup of all life. You know, we each get to own a different aspect of the collective that is all the aspects of what life could be in this tangible form. And so there is like a sweetness to that for me, of like, I am not this story and the things that have happened to me, but I get to honor it, and I get to hold it, you know, lovingly, or however you want to, because it is a life, and it is life. And yeah, I don't know, that just came to me as I was sitting on the toilet. I was like, it's like, because I walked past my bookshelf, so I was just like, Oh, it's like this beautiful thing that you get to like, like blow off the dust on it if we forget to tell it. And there's lots of relatability in it, even though the form might be different. So
It totally
One
is.
of my favorite quotes I wrote down that kind of pertains to that is, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I appreciate the novel analogy. Because Rachel, you and I have even talked about what's your next chapter? What does that look like? And Seth, you had mentioned even your time in jail. Sometimes when you're in a lower point, like I've asked myself, especially this year, because it has been a harder year. Sometimes it's just like, well, what is the point? Like, what is there to look forward to? Like, where does the hope come from? And for me, one of the analogies that has gotten me through is like, this is just a chapter and there'll be another chapter. And there might be a couple shitty chapters because I feel like I just got through one and I was like, new chapter. And then it was like, another shitty chapter. Like, this chapter might be short though. I mean, it might be long. But, so like the hope element of the novel and the chapters and just acknowledging and realizing that things can change just by engaging in life. Like there's that hope that even if today sucks, like if you get up tomorrow, something might change. And there's also choice.
My biggest change was just being happy with who I was. And I feel like that makes every day, today sucked a little bit at work. Like I felt very humbled and I'm not able to do my job as well as I've done jobs in the past. I'm not learning as quickly as I would like to, which bums me out. And I can see it very obviously written on my boss's face that you're not doing as good as I thought you were going to do that quickly in this aspect. And that hurts. That sucks. But ultimately, like, that's just a few hours of the day. Like, that's not the end. I got the dogs. I got the garden. I got a bike ride. I got work stuff to do when I get home. Like, I have the podcast due tonight. So, like, I just focus on each day and stay happy with me. Like, if I get down at all, like why am I single? What's going on here? That stuff, that'll get you down if you let it. But I'm good. I think talking with people helps combat all of that. And I'm in DUI classes right now. I get to talk. And with the 2-hour class, and I'm in there with 19 people, and I would say that I talk for 40 to 45 minutes of that 2 hours because no one wants to talk. And I'm like, why am I looking at a screen of people that no one wants to talk? Or, like the counselor asks a question and it's just like this. And I'd rather talk and try to share the experience. So my counselor kind of called me out of the blue today and she's like, I just want to thank you for engaging in the classroom. And I was like, what do you want me to say? Thank you. You're welcome. I don't know. So, I think that helps a lot of it. Like, I just won't let myself get down again because if I do, I picture myself at that end of that cliff. I picture myself, driving too fast. It's one of the reasons why I won't let myself get a motorcycle still to this day because I know that it's just right there. It's just one mistake waiting to happen. And my mom, so here's a funny thing, not funny, but my mom is just getting ready to turn 60. My brother's a cop. He was in the military. And she knows that she's going to bury both of her sons before she dies. She feels she's going to be 100 years old with an 18-year-old lover is what her joke is. But if I say the same thing to my dad, he's like, I'm not going to fucking bury both my kids. Are you kidding me? I'm like, but we live life every day. Like, my brother could be shot. My brother could get in a car crash. And I like to take pictures on the edge of the cliff or go skydiving or snowboarding or, mountain biking at 52 miles an hour. Like, I live life. So if I do die, just know that I lived the best life that I had. And so I think that's the different correlations between my parents is my mom's like, cool, I hope you enjoyed it. My dad's like, you're a selfish asshole.
I kind of to go full circle to Jenell, what you said at the beginning of I can't remember exactly what, but there was a version of it when I lived in Milwaukee. I had this intense conversation with my boyfriend of I didn't feel like I was really living fully. And I was just like, if I die tomorrow, I will be so fucking pissed with how I live my life. Like I'll be pissed because there's so much more that I could have done. And I was wrestling with it so hardcore. And I'd be like, don't you feel that? And he'd be like, no, I really like the life that I have. Like, yeah, there are things that could be better, and there are things, but, and I just like, and, you know, it's funny because I was trying to find the things outside of myself that would represent me feeling like this life that I'm living is like, you know, this is it. I feel great. And I recognize living in Dallas, which is funny. You know, probably a year ago, I turned to Dylan and I said, remember when we had those like fierce conversations, because I'm a fighter. And I was like, if I died, I would be proud of what I'm doing. I'd be proud of who I am. And I think that is it, is that I'm proud of how I'm showing up, who I am being. And it's not about, like, I didn't care that I was in Dallas. It wasn't about that. I like who I am. And so that's kind of interesting. I had still been in the mindset until this conversation that the reason that I was feeling like I could die and be okay with it was because of the life I had created for myself and the things that I was getting up to. But it is actually because I really like who I am, and the rest of it just seems to kind of, not that it's all perfect or anything, but it kind of just settles into place a little bit when that feels good. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Man, I fucking love this. Like, just like so grateful. So grateful. Yeah.
Next question you got.
Rachel, do you have to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll save. I have a question, but it's not related to this conversation at all. It's about being a graveyard attendant, a ghost. So we'll talk about that some other time.
We're having you back on, is what that
means. or we'll talk about it next week when we go.
Do you know that Jenell is obsessed with ghosts?
We've talked about it. I don't know about obsessed, but we've talked about it.
Do you? Oh gosh. Okay, it is a rabbit hole, and
no, we won't go there.
We'll talk about it next time.
Well, we're driving to Santa Barbara like a week. Save it. Seth.
Yeah.
In one word, how do you live your true north?
Nature.
Love it. And if people want to get a hold of you to continue the conversation, if they want to hike with you, if they want to go on a backpacking trip with you to get some new clientele for your business, how can they get a hold of you?
Getmovingadventures.com is my website, and Adventures with Seth is my Instagram handle.
We'll keep you alive. I made it through my first backpacking trip, so.
Yep, you sure did. Good job.
That's my review. He will keep you alive and tell you the flowers.
Are you going to be doing backpacking and hiking and nature things beyond California? Is that why you're saying the 4 seasons? Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yep.
Dude,
Yep.
Duluth, Lutzen.
I love it.
I used to live up in Minnesota, so it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, Grand Marais, Lutzen, Duluth,
yep. Oh yeah.
Superior, Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm that whole area. I love it.
Oh, so cool. Yay! I love what you're doing. It's so
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Seth. Thanks for sharing. And
yep.
This has been another episode of the True North Collective podcast. For more from Rachel and I, check us out on the gram at the True North Collective _. And if you liked what you heard, please consider leaving us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Until next time.